Hello and welcome, folks on the edge, and welcome, folks on the edge. So, what we have here is the Spyderco Watu, and that's the Swahili word for people or folks. So, this then part of Spyderco's ethnic series, and a knife that draws inspiration from a traditional knife of the Shokwe people of Central and Southern Africa. So, around Angola, DRC, Zambia, and Swahili, the language spoken predominantly in Tanzania and Kenya. So the knife, as I said, based on a traditional knife of the Shokwe people, and that traditional knife, very, very similar in shape, especially the blade, but we'll speak a little bit about that a little later on. So the original version of this knife was actually released around 2009, and that had a G10 show side and a titanium lock side, and that was a frame lock knife. So this is actually a re-release of that knife as a compression lock knife. So with that little bit of an introduction, I'll do the usual. We'll go through materials, dimensions, and then I'll dive into the design and attributes of this very angular and somewhat odd looking really knife. So we have a blade of CPM 20CV. Handle is a carbon fiber and G10 laminate. We've got liners of stainless steel. The clip is a stainless steel wire clip, and then all the rest of the hardware, the screws, is also stainless steel. And then we have a pivot that runs on phosphor bronze washers. Right. So let's dive into dimensions. Blade length, we have 83 millimeters, and that's 3.26 inches. Blade thickness is 2.4 millimeters, or 0.09 inches. Handle thickness is 10.5 millimeters, and that's 0.41 inches. Closed length of the knife is 106 millimeters, that's 4.17 inches. And then overall length, let's see if we can, overall length of the knife is 187 millimeters, and that's 7.35 inches. Right, weight. I don't have any stated weights, and I haven't actually weighed this knife. So let's have a quick look at that. Get the old scale lined up and cranked up. Right, and let's see what we have here. We're on grams. 83 grams, and it did feel light in hand, so very, very light, nice weight EDC knife. 83 grams, what have we got there in ounces? That is 2.9 ounces. So as I said, nice light EDC knife. Right, let's get this open and have a look at the design of this knife. So as I mentioned, very, very angular. Actually, I was just maybe dating myself yesterday, but I was looking at the knife sort of at that angle, and to me that looks like one of the spies from the Spy vs. Spy series. All it needs is a hat on it, and you've got one of the spies. Well, what can I say? Somebody that grew up reading Mad magazine 70s and 80s. Right, so blade shape they describe as a clip point, and I suppose you can see that. I might have called it a drop point as well, but they have described it as a clip point. We have a deep, very deep flat grind, so it's a full flat grind on that blade. Nice satin finish on the blade, and then obviously the traditional Spidey hole in that. Edge on the knife, really very, very neatly done and sharp out of the box. Well, not out of the box really, and I'll explain that a little bit later on as well. But then we've got this slightly curved, little gentle curve in that plunge line that runs from the spine of the blade all the way to the front. No sharpening choil, but we've got a little bit of jimping there for your index finger on the blade. But as I mentioned, no sharpening choil on the knife. Back of the blade, very squared off, kind of typical of a Spyderco knife. And I should actually stop there, by the way. Amazingly, my first Spyderco knife on the channel. So, well, not the first Spyderco knife on the channel, the first review of a Spyderco knife on the channel. I've used Spydercos a few times for size comparisons, but the first one that's actually being reviewed. So there's a moment to celebrate, I suppose. Right, so getting back to that blade now. Slender blade with that full grind, so very, very slicey, and quite a pointy tip and thin tip as well. So sort of a stabby and slicey blade on the knife. Right, let's get into the handle. So handle quite slab-sided, also not atypical of a Spyderco knife. Beveled edge along the edge of the handle and on those little holes. And those little holes, by the way, are also reminiscent of that traditional knife of the Chokwe people, where the knives, where the holes in the handle had a more sort of practical application, where the knife then can be attached to a pole to make a makeshift spear. So, that was the reason for the holes on that traditional knife. Here, I suppose more for aesthetics, makes the knife a little bit lighter, but also quite nice because it carries through the Spidey hole theme onto the handle that really actually does aesthetically look very good, as well as it being the nod to that traditional knife. The rest of the handle, if we look at the shape of that, so very, very simple and squared off shape. We've got a gentle curve on the finger side of that handle, and in the back, the curve runs in that direction, in the same direction as the curve in the front of the handle. It runs in that direction, but then we've got a little kink just at that point there. And then the line from there runs smoothly onto the spine of the blade. So when you get that in hand, that sort of area there does create a nice landing spot for your thumb. So very comfortably in hand, the knife. And while I've got it at that angle, you can see the size of it. So my medium-sized hands, I've mentioned that I wear a large glove. You can see I comfortably get onto that handle. Bigger hands also are going to get very, very comfortably onto this knife. And then we've got that little bit of jimping towards the blade. And that's where your index finger gets some purchase, so prevent you from slipping onto the blade in sort of that hard use scenario, I guess. And we've got the, what do we call that? Carbon fiber finish. Nice finish on that carbon fiber. And then that covering the G10 below that. Stainless steel liners, and we've got the holes running right through, so we'll see that on the inside as well. And then we've got Spyderco's compression lock, really nice. Runs very freely on those phosphor bronze washers. So in terms of action, when you know what you're doing, I don't know what's going on now. It's the angle again, I suppose. His Spidey flicks beautifully when you know what you're doing. And then the cutaway on the handle there to get to that compression lock. And as it is with Spyderco's compression locks, when you push that, the blade falls freely. So nice drop shuddy blade on that. And you can, if you get a little bit difficult on this knife, if you get to the compression lock, of course, and I'm bound to screw it up here, you can flick the blade out, but you see what I mean there. Pocket clip, we've got tip up carry and deep carry. The top of that pocket clip basically level with the top of the knife. So get that in your pocket. You're going to be seeing that wire pocket clip that I've said many times now that I really do like wire pocket clips. And you're going to see just a little bit of that knife sticking out of your pocket with that wire pocket clip. And that is reversible. You can see the little cutaways on the scale there for you to put the pocket clip on that side of the knife as well. So all in all, very, very nice knife actually. So slightly strange looking, but when you've had it in your hand for a while, it kind of grows on you and it feels really good. And it's obviously a perfect sort of size for EDC. Very flat, easy to get into your pocket. Nice size, very usable, very, very usable blade. I tend to prefer my blades a little bit chunkier. I'm just one of those people, but certainly a very, very good practical EDC knife on this. So in terms of markings, we've got the Spyderco logo, as one always does have on a Spyderco. Spyderco written out there on the ricasso, quite a wide ricasso on the blade. Spyderco and the blade steel. On the other side, we've got where it was made, so this Spyderco from Taiwan. And then, of course, we've got Cell Gless's designer's mark on the blade See if I can get a nice angle on that. How's that? Hopefully that comes out. So Cell Glass's Maker's Mark. So Cell, obviously, the owner and the owner and what's the word when you start a company? The founder. I was going to get there eventually. So Cell Glass, the owner and founder of Spyderco, as if I needed to tell you that. There we go. Right, guys, I do need to give thanks, and not to the normal people that I do give thanks. So in this particular instance, thanks very much to Bowen. This one of his personal knives. So Bowen, thanks very much for allowing me to hold on to this knife for what was meant to be a few days and has turned out to be over a week. I appreciate your patience and trust for giving this knife to me to have a look at and a look over and get on the channel. So Bowen, I really do appreciate that. Right, guys, I think I've pretty much gone through everything. I always think that. I'm never quite 100% sure. So a quick glance at the notes to see that I've got everything that I needed to say about the knife, and I think I have. So the only thing really left to do is size comparisons, and I'm going to start with a new acquisition for me. And believe it or not, I've eventually given in, and I bought myself a Spyderco paramilitary, and it is the paramilitary 3. So another cause for celebration, a knife that I didn't really like and eventually have given in, and I've had it in my hands for a few weeks now, and oh boy, has this knife grown on me. But why I wanted to show this, first of all, for size comparison, so you'll probably see this knife pop up more and more on size comparisons on the channel. But interestingly enough, the overall shape of the knife, and certainly the size of the knife, not very dissimilar. So first of all, if I put the knife over the top there, you can see that those two knives are very, very similar. But if you look at the overall shape, this one a lot more rounded, and you've got the rounding around the spidey hole and a little bit of a curve in the blade or so. But flatten this knife out a little bit, and you basically end up, interestingly enough, with the Watu. And I think you can see what I mean. You know, overall blade shape is the same, except that this one is flattened, straight lines, more geometric than that. So that was quite interesting. They're actually, while at first glance they may not seem it, they're actually very, very similar knives. So again, if this is a knife that you like and like carrying, you certainly will do on the Watu as well, because it's the same lock system and same sort of size as well. Right, so there we go. Let's get that out the way, and then use the usual knives that I have used on the channel. So the other one, of course, is the Spyderco Manix 2. I'll give you a size indication of that. The Manix 2, obviously an overall bigger knife, maybe not at that perspective. If I put it like that, it might help prove my point a little bit. And then in terms of size, yeah, the Manix 2 is going to be heavier. It's got that stainless steel in there as part of that lock, and obviously a bigger knife. Right, there's that. And then the other one that I've always been using is the what is this? The Medford Slim Midi. Once again, with dust flying out of it. You can see that I've carried that. Again. So the Medford Slim Midi, also not too dissimilar in size, and probably not too dissimilar in thickness as well. Yeah, very, very similar actually. One wouldn't say that if you saw the knife separately, but very, very similar in overall size. And then the other knife that I've been using, because it has been out, I have to say it, it's tradition, it's been out for so long, and everybody probably does know that knife, and that is the Benchmade Mini Barrage. Give you a sense of that as well. Right, let's get that out the way. So guys, overall impressions of the knife, well, it is a Spyderco, so it is you know, well made. This one, the centering is all good, it feels solid in hand, a little strange looking, maybe a bit of an acquired taste, and I don't know why I'm not getting, it is much easier than I'm showing it to be to Spidey, this knife. But all in all, another good Spyderco knife, another very practical Spyderco knife. So, you know, if the look appeals to you, or if you want something that has a little bit of a different shape to it, and maybe has that that ethnic sort of background to it, a good knife. I would recommend this as an EDC, guys, and I think that just about covers it on the knife. All that's really left to say is thank you very much for joining me. And as I always do say, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you can be notified every time I release a new video. As I always do say, I would really love you to join me more often. And other than that, you go well and God bless.